Rome did not build its empire only with risks. It was also built with debt. We generally know Roman warriors as very disciplined, talented, strong, and powerful. However, the truth is not exactly as we think. Soldiers and warriors had many needs. These included shelter, food, and salary. Even horses needed food and care. For machines, workers labored and nature was used. Trees were cut down. And all of this required money. A lot of money. So how was Rome able to take part in wars for such a long time? How did it finance them? And why is it still so important today? For them, war was not only something done on the battlefield, it was also considered part of the economy. Once it started, it did not stop. That is why growth became a necessity for Rome, not a choice. Let's start from the beginning. In the early days, Roman soldiers came from the people themselves. At that time, if you owned land, you could join the army. You brought your own weapon, and when the war ended, you returned home. But as Rome developed, this system changed. Wars began to last longer. They no longer lasted for months, but for years. Inexperienced soldiers from the public were no longer enough. More capable and professional soldiers were needed. The state began to pay salaries. Even if the amount was not very high, it was enough to keep soldiers in the army. Then something important happened. Conquest began to turn into a source of money. New lands meant new mines, new taxes, slaves, and income. For this reason, each new war began to finance the next one, creating a cycle. However, Rome did not rely only on taxes. It also took loans. It borrowed large amounts from the wealthy class. During times such as the Punic Wars, elites gave credit to the state. But they did not do this out of goodwill. They did it for profit. They charged interest, demanded privileges, and gained influence in new lands. Thus, war became a serious business. As long as it was profitable, it continued to grow. Over time, this system changed everything. Power passed to generals who distributed loot. Senators became partners in profit, and private companies collected taxes and managed logistics. In this way, everyone benefited, except the people. This was because costs were rising rapidly, so the state had to find money more often. When conquest decreased, it turned to another method and had to devalue its money. The silver content in the denarius was reduced. Over the years, money lost its value. Prices increased, and trust declined. Eventually, the system collapsed. Meanwhile, the rich protected themselves by buying land and assets and hiding their wealth. Poor families had to struggle with inflation. They paid taxes, and their purchasing power decreased. This was not only a military collapse, but also an economic one. Today, states go into debt. Wars are fought with borrowed money, and money is printed. Big companies profit, but people struggle. Does this sound familiar? Rome shows us this. Systems that try to grow continuously cannot last forever. At some point, they stop. Then only debt remains. Income declines. The state begins to pressure its people. More pressure, more taxes, more inflation. Today, the names have changed. We call it monetary policy, incentives, and economic management. But the logic is similar. The rich invest. The poor calculate their grocery expenses. So what should we do? At least, what should we realize? Most people do not question these things. They say, it happened like this, and it ended like this. But this way of thinking is wrong. The Stoics call this an illusion. We may not be able to escape the system, but we do not have to accept it blindly. We can research history. We can follow money and inflation. We can ask, who does this benefit? This information is not hidden. It is just not told or explained enough. But now you know. And maybe your perspective will change. Finance is not only about investment, it is also a culture. It is about learning how the world works. Next time, do not just watch. Look carefully at where the money is spent. because empires do not fall when towers collapse. They fall when their calculations no longer work.